In a world completely overwhelmed by ongoing debates as to which adaptation of cinema is better, the West has Hollywood, the East has Bollywood, but in the middle we have the Globerwood Critic. Greetings, spicy chaps and chapasses, I'm the Globerwood Critic. Alright folks, take 6 anti-heroic tough nuts and put them together for 2 films that is based on doing a heist. What do you get? I'll tell you what you get. Reservoir Dogs and Kaante. Reservoir Dogs, being the directional debut of Quentin Tarantino, introduced a new era to filmmaking. Non-linear storytelling with the use of making the violence in his films look stylized. Now I know what you're thinking. Kaante, directed by Sanjay Gupta, is basically a straight rip-off of the other. Here's one perfect example.
Are you gonna bark all day, little doggy? Or are you gonna bite?
Hey Major, क्या है? सारा दिन तू भौंकेगा या काटेगा भी?
However, there are some positives that make the 2 films stand out to their target audiences. But hey, we're here to do a comparison between these 2 films. So without further ado, here's Reservoir Dogs vs Kaante. Now, since Tarantino does his approach in storytelling in a non-linear fashion, I thought I'd do the same thing with this comparison by starting off with the story. Now, both films take their approaches in telling both stories very differently. In the original Reservoir Dogs, Tarantino takes the non-linear approach in telling the story. Rather than showing the initial robbery that the 6 men were involved in, it focuses more on the aftermath as one character is shot and another suspects that one of them is a traitor.
We think we got a rat in the house.
I guarantee we got a rat in the house.
Only small segments are shown of both the robbery and each character's acquaintance with one another, not forgetting the pre-plan of the heist.
Find me a different character down here.
Kaante, on the other hand, takes a more traditional linear approach. In the beginning of the film, we are seeing that all characters are locked in a cell and they all have the same motive in wanting to punish the FBI by robbing the bank which holds their payroll.
The Service American Bank?
यहाँ के हर पांडु का खाता वहाँ जमा होता है, इसलिए आज तक किसी ने डेयरिंग नहीं की कि उस बैंक को लूटे.
What makes this film different to the original is that we are introduced to each character's problem as to why they're taking part in the heist. Some want to help their loved ones, and others want to improve their own businesses. Now I know there's some flaws in this film that I'd like to address. The first is that unlike the original where little about the robbery is shown, they analyse everything. All the planning is shown throughout the first half of the film, and the second being is that even though we wouldn't expect the violence to have been graphical and somewhat stylistic, it is kept to a minimal until the end when 3 of the main characters shoot each other through long takes. Don't get me wrong, I like how different Kaante tells the story more in a traditional manner despite some of its flaws, but Reservoir Dogs in my opinion stands out the most. The drama was more dramatic, the violence was more graphical, and the non-linear approach to telling its story was more stylistic. Point goes to the West. Now in both films, there is no main hero, but there can only be one villain. So let's compare and determine who is the best villain. Tim Roth versus Lucky Ali. Now you have to admit, you couldn't ask for 2 very different actors to portray the main villains in both films. You have the smart aleck yet over the top Mr. Orange, aka Freddie Neuendijk, played by Roth.
Motherfucker. Looks just like the Thing.
And then there's the wise and genuinely quiet Mac, played by Ali.
जब लंगर लगाई है, तो हम भीख मांगने क्यों?
Alright, I'm gonna be honest. When I first watched Reservoir Dogs, I genuinely hated the role Roth played. is not just because the continuous wailing that he does when he's shot, making it far too obvious to the audience that he may be the one who betrays the gang, but because of his line delivery is made to look far too cheesy when bluffing his way into joining the gang, a trait in which Joe, played by Lawrence Tierney, rightfully suspects him.
That's your proof? You don't need proof when you have instinct.
Ali's role as Mac, in my opinion, stands out more, mainly for the simple fact that he keeps his emotions and thoughts inside. He rarely speaks, but only words of wisdom. Now for those of you who have seen the film Kaante, you would not suspect that this guy is the one to betray the group. Now unless you've seen the original Reservoir Dogs, you would immediately guess that the betrayer is Mac in the remake, as he is the first to get shot and carried to the warehouse. But as I said before, the difference between both guys and their roles is character. And because of the less is more approach being used in Ali's role as Mac, he stands out more as the convincing villain. Point goes to the east. Now comes the most complex of the comparison. It's the supporting cast. Now you have to admit, you could not ask for a better choice of actors to portray 6 tough nut characters for both films. Plus there's a vast difference between them, such as their personalities and their age differences. You have the psychotic and comical, the dim-witted and intelligent, and the old and young. Now for me, there were only 2 character types that remained the same in terms of personality. Chris Penn, who plays Nice Guy Eddie in the original, and Sunil Shetty, who plays Mark in the remake, both portray their character roles in the same way. Throughout both films, they are shown as both short-tempered, tough, and overall loyal to their comrades. But the big decider for me is the Mr. White character. In the original, the Mr. White character is played by Harvey Keitel. Keitel, in my opinion, exceeds my expectations. You see he's convincing as well as the most experienced professional out of the gang. But what makes him stand out, in my opinion, is that he's shown to have a more compassionate side to his personality, something that you rarely see from him.
Say the goddamn words, you're gonna be okay!
In the remake, the Mr. White character is given a name instead, Major, played by the legend himself, Amitabh Bachchan. Okay, I have to admit, when I saw this film, I literally thought they were going to give Tierney's role to Bachchan, but to my surprise, him playing Keitel's role stood out perfectly.
कोई बात नहीं, डर लगना चाहिए। आज दिन भर तू बहुत बहादुर रहा है, थोड़ा सा डरेगा, बुरी बात नहीं।
Unlike Keitel, he was shown to be older and more the leader of the gang. The only problem I had with Bachchan is that he's practically played the tough nut, anti-heroic role his entire life, even during the mid-1970s when he became a rising star.
मैंने तुमसे कहा था ना कि हमें पकड़ के तुम्हें बहुत बड़ी गलती की।
As much as I like the all-star cast in the film Kaante, it's the cast in Reservoir Dogs that manages to stand out the most in terms of drama, comedy and toughness. Also, we never actually see if there is any motive from each character as to why they were involved in the heist. They're just shown as random recruits from one character, hence given the less is more approach. Point goes to the west. So there you have it, Reservoir Dogs beats Kaante in this comparison by a tad fraction in terms of storyline, violence and better choice in cast. I'm the Globerwood Critic. Until next time, aaj ke liye alvida, mere desi logo.